This is Hot Mike.
Hot Mike.
On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Wednesday morning edition of Hot Mike rolls on. Tomorrow, Tyler Oakes will join us, NDSU baseball coach, in anticipation of the final regular season series for the Bison. They have Northern Colorado here tomorrow. Game actually we're broadcasting on WDAY Extra. Looking forward to that. So he'll join us tomorrow at 10 to preview the Bison finale with the Bears, and they can still win the Summit League championship. We'll get into that more in about a half hour on our Bison Media Zone show here live on WDAY Extra. We talked about it off the top of the show with the news that the NFL is in business now with Netflix and the another streaming platform for sports fans that they're going to have to get. Now, I know Netflix and Amazon are the most common of the streaming platforms out there. I would assume most everybody has Netflix, but it's another layer on top of this discussion we've been having for, I would say, the better part of 2 years. Certainly you lump in what the Twins are going through right now and the inability for them to stream their games. It's not just on the professional and college sports front. It's come even on the high school side of things. There are certain states that have decided to have their product be charged in terms of if you want to broadcast a game, you have to pay a certain school to do that. It happens in the postseason. Certainly in North Dakota, we have a deal with the High School Activity Association for state tournaments. Minnesota is the same for section tournaments. We pay Section 8 to broadcast over at Concordia for the basketball tournaments and end of state. KSTC has a deal to broadcast all the state tournaments. Regular season has not been a much trampled ground until maybe now here locally. Earlier this week, Grand Forks decided that they think that they can go down this road of potentially charging broadcasters, radio stations, television stations to broadcast their games. It's a novel idea. It's not been done in the state of North Dakota. It's our pleasure to welcome on Grand Forks Public Schools AD Mike Biermaier to the show this morning, who is the man with the plan, and he joins us here to discuss it. I appreciate the time. First off, I'm really interested, since this story's been out over the last 36 hours, what's the reaction been?
You're never sure what your reaction's going to be, but it has been actually fairly positive. There are some questions out there that people have, but it kind of comes down to the why are we doing it. But my conversations with other athletic directors around the state, even Northwest Minnesota, and some local media sources is, you know what, this is a good idea. We're already doing it for our playoffs. And again, get back to the why of why we're doing it. It really is going to help us enhance some of those things.
Let me have you right there. Why? Tell me why this is a road you want to go down.
Well, we feel that, in high school sports, I think we can all agree that there's a demand, there's a real sense of we want to be able to be a part of our student athletes' lives, even relatives. So one of the big whys is we want to be able to expose or broadcast more of our games, not just as a student athlete side of it, to expose some of our teams that don't get that exposure. They're not the high profile games. But also when you think about the viewership, we have grandmas and grandpas, in the winter that, head down to Arizona. And what we hear is, well, we can watch that high profile game, but what about some of the other sports that my grandchildren are doing? We want to expose that to everybody and create a broader base. And that's kind of the big why.
How long has this been in the works in your mind? How long have you been thinking about unrolling this plan?
Well, me personally,
yeah,
probably more like 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Something similar in a different format, a different way on the previous school that I came from. But now that I came here, I'm in my second year, and it's one of the things I've been talking a lot about, kind of picking the brains of some media, if this is possible. And it really kind of started to come to fruition maybe in the last 3 months to 6 months, maybe.
So give us a little bit of the not necessarily backstory, but what goes into it. What are you looking for, and I guess the nitty gritty terms of what you proposed to the school board on Monday?
Okay, well, a couple key points. First off, is that we want to make sure people understand from the viewership side of this. That's one of the concerns. Is part of the plan that we're going to request is that viewers will not pay for this service. I've gone down that road. It kind of becomes complicated. controversial. I want it open to everybody. So that's a big piece of it. Another piece is minimum number of games where myself, Central's AD, Tony Bina, Red River's AD, Tyler Nelson, will be able to showcase. What we want to do is showcase all of our Red River Central rivalry games,
Yep.
and then more. When it comes down to like the rate card and how much to pay, we're asking, for the plan to come back in based off of, we can look it up and we can see what the media are paying for state tournaments. And, even on the Minnesota side, like you mentioned, the Section 8, what are you paying for there? And we understand this is regular season. So we're not going to get that rate, and the rate isn't the biggest piece. It's exposure for our students, viewership for our parents and family and friends.
Is this, Mike, just to the high-profile sports, or are you hoping for swimming, volleyball, golf, baseball? Would they be included as well?
Absolutely, 100%. You think of what's easy to do, throw a camera up in the gym and go. But we can do it for golf. We can do this for tennis. We've just started, thanks to our cross-country coaches, we now have a border battle cross-country meet with 2,000 runners. I can see, and as I've talked to media, we can put 3 cameras out there, the mile marker, the 5-mile marker, finish line. I really think this is going to open up all of our sports.
You mentioned you've already got some feedback from your colleagues. Have you heard some detractors? Have you heard from why would we do that? Why would we maybe cut our nose to spite our face? Maybe the best way to ask on that.
Not from my colleagues and not from the media that I've talked to. I understand, from some of the public, they're thinking, well, the media is already doing a great job. Why would we try and cut them off? And I want to make sure we understand we're not trying to cut anybody off. We're trying to raise the stakes on how many events we can get published out there, if you want to call it, or broadcast. So again, the point is really enhancing and exposing our kids.
Let me ask you we have traditionally televised the Cushman Classic, the football game. We've traditionally done maybe 1 or 2 of the Central Red River hockey games. Under this, would we still be allowed to do that? Or is this now we would have to pay as well? If we wanted to come in, WDAY, I'm asking, if we wanted to do that, we would have to submit to something to pay for that.
What this doesn't inhibit is the current radio situation. All radio stations, when they want to radio or broadcast through the radio waves, this doesn't affect them. They'll still come in, let us know, they get the spot. It does not affect TV viewership. So in your situation, no. What it does affect is looking for that partnership with those media companies that either just do streaming or tie streaming in with the radio play-by-play.
Okay.
And really, it's not so much about, like the rate card and things like that and the value amount of money. It's developing that partnership and understanding that we want, again, I keep repeating it, we want to get all of our sports out there for all of our viewers.
Would you say it's more targeted towards radio than television in your mind then?
If I had to pinpoint, I would probably agree with you. Yep.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to affect, TV that much, radio that much, or radio per se that do the streaming, but not in your world, I don't think.
I am intrigued on this. I was visiting off air with you about it, and I was talking with a couple of people here in our building on this, because it's a hot topic, comes up every year, what we do for the state tournaments. I think you have a product there. I think people would pay for it. I am always intrigued, though. People always say that, but then when the rubber, and I see it every March, Mike, like, I can't believe you're asking me to pay for it, and this is playoff. I don't know what the feedback would be when you get to a October regular season football game where it's Red River playing Valley City, and someone says, I don't know if I want to go down that road. They talk a big game in May, but when the rubber hits the road, I don't know. How do you even address that come October if somebody says that to you?
I look at it as, this partnership is multifold. I mean, what we're really looking at again is just that consistent exposure for our people. But again, we're trying to, like you said, we have a value. I think everyone can understand there is a value in the games that we have. So we're trying to leverage that to, even as I talk about in the future, creating some educational opportunities for our kids that want to get in this business, that want to learn how to do broadcasting, play-by-play, behind-the-scenes stuff.
What's the next step on this now? You got approval from the board, so what happens now?
What happens now is I think my conversations pick up on with the conversations with the local media, media around the state,
Yeah.
who is interested, they're going to have questions on, Mike, I read the RFP. We understand that we're putting a plan together. We can see what you're looking for. Once we submit a plan, how does this work out in our world, and what's going to happen? Some of our timelines is, we're going to get to May 22nd, I guess into the June pieces, we're going to have our board final approval. I think the final RFP is coming in on maybe June 4th.
Yep.
I'm looking at some deadlines here, but then June 10th is the final, what we'll call board consideration of those proposals. So there could be changes. A media may come back with their proposal. It looks like the best, but we may tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess as we talk into that RFP, I also want to say that this isn't an exclusive. We're not picking one media that's the only one that's going to do our games. If we had more than one radio station that wanted to broadcast a minimum of the 25 games, we'll take them.
Okay. How do you feel about being the guinea pig on this? Like, it's always interesting. I feel in that spot sometimes where we've done this show or other streaming ventures. I feel like I'm the first over the wall. I'm going to take a lot of hits. That's just part of the gig. This is not necessarily part of your gig, but you're going down that road. How do you feel about being the guinea pig or being the one that's going to be first over the wall, so to speak?
Well, when you believe in something, it's okay.
Yeah.
But also that, a little naive about it. So, hey, I put myself and the district out there, and we'll take it. But again, I firmly believe this is the right way to do it for our student athletes and for our community. So when you think of that first and you think of that why that we talked about, I'll take it on. I'll be the guinea pig.
What if this catches on? Do you feel like other school districts will hop on board?
100%. I really do. I think that if we can find that common ground of that partnership with the media, I think we're going to find that this is going to kind of start rolling through North Dakota.
Do you have a baseline of what you're looking for monetary wise? Is there an idea you have in your mind? Like this is a number we'd be satisfied with?
My answer is going to be no, not really. I guess my point is I know what the state charges for their state playoffs.
Yep.
I can go back and as we don't really charge, I think, here for our East region stuff, but we do know what Minnesota charges. So we're going to be lower than that. And I think it kind of comes back to the plan from the media to say, we understand, Mike, that we understand you have a value. Here's what we think it's worth. And we're going to, because it's brand new.
Yeah.
We're just going through it for the first time.
There are two events that come right to mind, and they're both the EDC tournaments, the hockey tournament in Grand Forks, basketball at the Shack. Those are premium events that right now are free to broadcast. Would be considerable dollar amounts. I think if somebody wanted to go down that road, I really believe that.
I think so too, and yeah. I think as you mentioned, on the Minnesota side, it's state and it's region that charge.
Yeah.
In North Dakota, it's just state.
Right.
I think at the East region side of it, EDC, I think that this is something that's going to come forward.
I really appreciate your time on this. Let's visit again next month when things start moving, okay?
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Biermaier joining us, Grand Forks Public Schools Athletic Director, joining us here this morning on the news that came out of Monday's school board meeting in Grand Forks that they are going to move forward with charging for broadcasters to do the games. And I will tell you, and he answered the question, so this wouldn't affect what we do in a game of the week setting. Like we go and broadcast the Cushman Classic, and we've broadcasted various games of the Gambucci Cup Series for hockey. But I firmly believe this. I know I've got some disagreements in our own building. I think this is the next step. I really do. I think you're going to see this happen. Why would they not? If you're a school, if you're an entity, and you know your product is in demand, then why would you do it for free? That is the common refrain. Just because it's always been that way is not the answer. Now, can you make it, and again, I'm not a great economic mind, can you make it solvable? Can you make it so that you don't lose money? That is the question. I don't know what the and I understand it's a novel idea, and I understand why Mike said it, but I don't know what the appetite is for golf, for soccer. A regular season soccer game in October or May draws 50 people. Is that worth that to broadcast? As a broadcaster, I would tell you no. There are football, basketball, hockey. Yeah, there's some monetary value to those games, absolutely. Especially football because there's so few of them. North Dakota, they play 9 regular season games. Yeah, there's a lot of monetary value to have the rights to that. I can't tell you there's a whole lot for those other sports, and if you want to take that as a slight to those, that's fine. I'm just telling you, when you go, if you watch our newscast, and if you were to turn the camera, and when we're up in the stands at a soccer match, it's going to be mostly empty, and outside of the people that want to go there. It might sound callous, it might sound rude. It's the fact. And heck, that's the case sometimes for hockey as well. Sometimes for football. For teams that aren't very good. Grand Forks Central, I shot plenty of game where there was hardly anybody there. They weren't good for a long time. Red River had the same problem. I just think for those sports, it's different. I don't know what the appetite is for an EDC golf tournament. Now, before we wrap this segment up, I will say our friends out west, the WDA hockey tournament and the WDA basketball tournament have been regularly streamed at least for the last 3 to 4 years. Our friends at the PSP network have done that. I know the guys there. I know Nick really well out in Minot. They just this year, they had been a free platform up until this year. I believe in February, they announced that their model couldn't support doing it for free. And I'm not picking on them. It's more of a conversation that I get every time we talk about we're televising an event, that they needed subscriptions to continue doing what they're doing, which is pretty darn good. What they do, it's a couple cameras, graphics, announcers, the whole thing. It's one thing, again, going back to our conversation with Drew, people just think we just set up a camera and go. It's not that easy to do. You could do that. It looks like, you know what, but you could do that. But if you want it to look so people will pay for it, it has to look a certain way. It has to be presented a certain way. You want it to sound a certain way. So they went down the road now of having people pay for their services, for their web streaming. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. I do. I'm really intrigued to see how this goes this upcoming fall in Grand Forks. And Mike said it. I tend to agree with him. I think if this works, you're going to see this happen other places. I know I've got some pushback on that already. I tend to think if one does it and it works, you're going to see others do it. We'll break. We'll come back. We'll put a bow on things for Hot Mike for today. Bison Media Zone coming up at 10:30 with Bison quarterback Cole Payton. Much more on this Wednesday morning. We'll read some emails as well when we come back after this.